This episode of The Forecast is sponsored by Clinic Drug, located in Morganton, North Carolina, and serving the surrounding community since 1938. Clinic Drug has a large selection of Nature's Bounty vitamins, Briar Lane Home and Garden flags, Russell Stover's candies, and Thai stuffed animals. Clinic Drug offers free delivery and 24/7 unparalleled service. Clinic Drug turns no patient away. For more information, call them at 828-584-0741, or you can find them on Facebook or go to their website, www.clinicdrug.com. Your health is our priority at Clinic Drug. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Forecast. We are your connection to the who's who in the game of golf. We hope to make you laugh and learn and win and grow your golf IQ. I'm your host, Alan Burton, Director of Instruction for the Alan Burton Golf Academy at Lake Hickory Country Club in Hickory, North Carolina. I want to thank our listeners for tuning in. You can find us on themesh.tv and all your favorite podcast platforms such as Apple Podcast, Spotify, Stitcher Radio, iHeartRadio, and Google Play. Be sure to check out all the other shows on themesh.tv, and they're all produced here in Western North Carolina. On today's episode, I'm joined by a really good buddy of mine. Rob Gallagher is with Club Champion Golf, one of the most, I guess you could say, high-end club fitting companies in the world right now, and growing like fires in California. Unfortunately, they're growing leaps and bounds. And Rob is a very knowledgeable guy when it comes to club fitting. So we're going to have a great conversation today with Rob and learn more about how our golf clubs can be better fit to suit our game. And Rob, welcome to the show. I appreciate you taking time out this morning, man. I know you're busy with all that's going on in the Club Champion Golf world.
Yeah, thanks, Alan.
Well, we're speaking about club fitting today, and I know you and I go way back, Rob. I think we met when I was over at Rock Barn, and you were with a different company doing some very high-end fitting. Have you always been into club fitting as per se, or how did you kind of go from just being a golfer and loving the game into this expert field of club fitting that you're in?
That's a good question. I think for me, whenever I played collegiately from 2005 to 2009, and that was not a fantastic year to graduate, similar to this year. And for me, I just knew golf. I played, like I said, played Division I golf, and immediately had the opportunity to go work at a small kind of family-owned custom fitting studio right outside of New York City, and had the cool ability to work with TrackMan, to work with SST Puring, which is, kind of a way to make sure that the shafts are performing to their peak potential, to learn how to build golf clubs. And that was really, really cool. And for me, it was just going to be kind of a quick place to work for a little while, make some ends meet before I could get a big boy job and, go work in the real world, as they say, I guess. Right. And turns out I loved it and was really good at it. And so, after a year of being able to learn how to build golf clubs, which I think was an interesting thing that my boss at the time kind of made me do. I basically shadowed him for a year on TrackMan and watched him fit and learned what he was doing. But I had to build the golf clubs and learned how they went together for about a year before he let me start fitting. And then when I did, it was kind of a lot easier to be able to explain some different variables about why clubs do what they do based on how they get built. But one of those things for me was I, just like everybody else, decided that, hey, I'm going to, do some lessons. And I learned real quick, Alan, I don't have the patience to do what you do. I can make somebody's golf game better real quickly with a golf club, but I can't do it doing a lesson. It just doesn't work for me.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, it's a team effort, really. I mean, a golf instructor needs to have a good club fitter at their right hand, much like yourself, and I can call upon, because as players try to play this game and navigate the variables, there are so many ways they can be helped through club fitting. I know I have a philosophy myself as an instructor. I want to help my player in a holistic way, and that does include club fitting. And I've done some of it myself. I have my own limitations where that's concerned, so to speak, because I just don't have what you have at your disposal. I mean, at your facility, you have basically every club head that's a current model, every shaft that a player needs to at least have access to examine and try, and the knowledge to put those components together in the best possible way. So let's talk a little bit about what you offer there at your facilities, and let the listeners know where to find you for sure.
Yeah, so Club Champion is we we're the number one fitter out there, and that is a lot to do with how many demos that we have, as well as how many locations that we have. Going back to a little bit of the history of it, whenever I started with Club Champion, this was in 2016. We had at that point 14 stores, and the plan was to get to 20 and just kind of pause and see how the growth of the company was going. And they brought me on board to run the Charlotte location. And when we opened up, Charlotte was the 18th location. And they considered Charlotte a secondary market, and it was fantastic. Golfers, in North Carolina have not seen what we do before, I think, at the high level that we do it, and they really took to it. And so after the first 2 months, we were booked out for the next 3. And at that point, our company said, you know what, pedal to the floor, let's do this thing and let's grow. And so now we are at 74 locations nationwide. And I think by the end of this year, we're hoping to get to about 80. So even with COVID, we're still planning on growing. So it's been a fantastic journey with Club Champion. But for us, everything is a la carte. Like Alan said, we've got heads, we've got shafts. And when I say we got heads and shafts, when I started, I think we had 30,000 combinations. And over the last few years, the president of our company, who kind of runs the fitting side of it, has been slowly, creeping a few more shafts and a few more brands of heads and stuff in there. So we just did the math again recently, and now we could actually say we've got over 45,000 different combinations of golf clubs to be able to fit with. So I've got a bunch of staff bags full of shafts. I've got a wall, 2 or 3 walls full of shafts to be able to play around with and work with. And the kind of coolest thing about what we do at Club Champion is we're totally brand agnostic. I'm not on staff with anybody. I've got no allegiance to any brand. My goal is to get that golfer to play whatever works and play better, right? So I think it's probably the same way with teachers as well. The teachers that maybe sometimes subscribe to just one way of teaching, right? Stack and tilt, and that's all they want to teach. They're only going to be successful with some students that can swing that way, And so if you can be malleable and look at different brands and things like that, you're going to have a better opportunity for success.
Well, and it's also apparent that, knowing you as I do, it's apparent that your company really values the quality of people and skills and knowledge within the staff members that they're putting in their stores. So, you could fill a big building full of a bunch of equipment and still not have a great club fitting, operation. Unlike, Club Champion, where you actually have intelligent, educated, experienced fitters, dealing with it, because that's the real art right there, is putting the shaft and the head together correctly for that individual in front of you. Having the diagnostic equipment, I mean, you guys have TrackMan bays in your facility. I know in Charlotte, I'm pretty sure that's company wide. You have the quality launch monitor measurement devices to kind of give you the data you need, to do a good job, and the knowledge on top of it. So that's a powerful combination that they've assembled there for sure. And on the instructor side, we always want to help our players, and I was talking to someone the other day, and it's just difficult to get golfers to take lessons. A very small number of people, want to be helped in that way, but they always tell me about the new driver they just bought, or the new wedge, or the new putter, and maybe not as much putter. Got to twist their arm to spend a couple $100 on a good putter, but the idea is that they're really quick to buy a club, and what I want to warn them of is buying a club that's just ill-suited for them, because a lot of times that's what I'm finding when a student comes to me. So let's talk about the nuts and bolts of it, and maybe give us some examples of the things, the variables, if you will, of what you're looking at when you see a player and how you get them fitted.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on who you talk to, right? I had a conversation with, I think, the president of Golf Pride, and he's like, the grip is the most important part of the club. Okay, I get it. That's what you're holding on to, right? But I think you
Yeah.
talk to a shaft manufacturer, they're going to say the shaft. You talk to, a head manufacturer, they're going to say the head. For
Right.
us, you got to see how all those variables work in conjunction with one another. And so using those tools that you mentioned before, using TrackMan, using Sam Putt Lab, we want to get validation on all of that.
Right.
And so for me, what we do when we get you into the studio is we're going to have you hit um, a few shots with what you got. And the nice thing about, for me, doing it indoors is that we're removing a ton of different variables. We're removing the humidity, we're removing the temperature, the grass on the driving range, right?
Yep. Yep.
Everything's the same from shot to shot. And so we're kind of fitting you in a vacuum. So apples to apples, we're going to see, what does your driver do? And then once we are able to combine different heads, different shafts, figure out what is this driver going to be able to give you. And then at that point, the unfortunate part is, how much does that cost, right? And where do we go from there? But hitting on your point, I agree with you. I think I've seen over the years that people will continuously just buy new product trying to find it.
Mm-hmm.
And they look at it as an investment, but they'll play that club for 2 weeks and they never got fitted for it. And then they're like, oh man, I'm going to go trade it in online.
Yeah.
And I've heard the thing before that's like, man, that aftermarket shaft is pretty expensive. And I get that. But I've had the same aftermarket shaft in 3 different driver heads over the last 10 years. So for me, it was an investment because I know that it worked.
Mm-hmm.
And so when players come in, we're going to be able to have that information. I had a gentleman that came in the other day. I fit him back in 2017 when we first opened. I think I got him into the original Epic driver. And we went through it. I couldn't beat it. I mean, this is 3 years later, 3 years newer technology. I still couldn't beat what he had gotten fitted into 3 years before.
Yeah.
And so at that point, it's like, kind of paid for itself a little bit. He was that guy that continued to buy new drivers over and over and over again. So for me, it's not about trying to get sales all the time. It's about trying to make that golfer better. And I think that's sometimes what I like to get out there to the general public is, I'm not trying to just sell you product. I want to make sure you play better. And if that means that you keep what you got, then you keep what you got.
Yeah. That's the reason they should come to you. I mean, I've got a little bit of club fitting philosophy, I guess, if you will, as a coach, and I'd be interested to hear, obviously, your opinion on this approach. And I think there's generically 2 ways you might find the club fitter go. And say he gets a golfer to do a club fitting, and this golfer is a high handicapper. In your interview process, you find that they're really not going to practice a whole lot. They're not taking lessons. They just play recreational once a month with their friends, whatever. And you might take the approach, okay, this fellow swings the way he swings. He's not going to change. And I'm going to make
Mm-hmm.
this golf club perform as best as I can as the fitter to help this golfer out. And he may steepen that shaft severely, and he's fighting a slice, and you're going to put that club as upright as you need to put it, and boom, he's 3 or 4 degrees upright or more, and he's hitting better golf shots with that motion that you wouldn't necessarily teach anyone. And then the other approach would be, this individual wants to get better. They really want to progress, and they've invested in lessons. They've invested in things that are going to help them make them better as well. And the fitting process may go different there. For me, I would think, hey, I want to get this club in the lie angle that gets this golfer in the best posture for their height and arm length. What's the best posture for this golfer to move correctly, balance correctly, and make a repeating golf swing with power. And I don't want that club in a position that forces them out of posture, so to speak. So tell me your thoughts on that. Is that similar to how you think, or am I way off base in that thinking?
No, I mean, it's funny. I asked that question. So when we interview a player, we're going to talk about kind of what they're shooting. And for me, it depends, right? If I've got a guy that I'm a 3 handicap, he's already kind of at that level. So I'm just going to fit him. Maybe he wants to get better, but those incremental changes in his swing, and maybe I'm off base on this one, but I don't feel like those incremental changes are going to change that club up drastically, right?
Right.
However, you get a guy that shoots mid to high 80s. He does a few little things with his swing, and he might be shooting low 80s, maybe breaking 80 at that point. So for me, I ask him, maybe a little differently than how you just explained it. I go, look, are you the type of guy that just wants to go out and have some beers with his buddy on the weekend and have fun? Or are you wanting to go to the range 2 days a week and play on the weekends and have fun, but you want to bring that handicap way down? And that answer sometimes to me, Alan, doesn't even necessarily just dictate lie angle or just those smaller things like that. And to me, that's kind of a more of a nitpicky thing.
Yeah.
But it'll dictate to me like, okay, maybe they're on the bubble of reg and stiff. Maybe I'll give them the little bit stiffer shaft. Maybe they're on the bubble of a quote unquote game improvement head, or they could go into a P790 or an Apex CF19 from Callaway, something that's maybe a little bit outside their comfort zone. It still works, but it would be something that they're going to appreciate in 2 years or 3 years versus looking down at a giant Maverick, game improvement oversized head going, man, this thing really worked at my fitting, but now I've gotten so much better. I got to go buy a new set of irons.
Yeah.
Right. So that's my mindset is like, what can I get you into that works, but you can still grow into, for that type of player. And the same thing can be said for juniors too, right? Sometimes when I fit juniors, I'll even tell their parents like, hey, I'm going to add a half inch to this thing because they're going to grow. And, let's see how long that lasts us versus the other way around, of getting it perfectly fit. And then you've got to come see me in 3 more months.
Yeah, they're growing so fast. I know I deal with that a lot too with juniors, and the parents, they want to buy a set of golf clubs sometimes 2 or 3 sizes too big for that very reason. Now, and as a coach, I see some significant potential harm to their long-term development if you go way too big. I totally get, a little bit bigger. If I can get a youngster to have a club that's just a little bit big, I can probably deal with that and keep them in good posture. But these parents that buy an adult driver for their 10-year-old, it's a struggle a lot of times to get them in good posture and get them to actually swing the club with some control and balance without the club swinging them. So we have to walk that fine line to help keep that kid successful. Now, he might hit the longer club farther when he hits that 1 out of 50 balls, for sure.
Yeah.
But it's difficult for them to deliver the sweet spot consistently with it, kind of swinging them. So, yeah, I get that.
So here's a good question for you, Alan, because I talk about this a little bit to some of my players, and you got a fitter on here, you got a teacher on here. So I kind of say, look, it kind of is the chicken or the egg. Let's say a person is pretty new to the game and they've got some hand-me-down irons that are just men's standard, right?
Mm-hmm.
Are you more of the mindset that, hey, we need to come get some lessons first and we'll work on it and then we can go get fitted? Or are we going, you know what, we need to at least get you into the length and maybe lie angle and shaft flex and stuff like that. You should get fitted before we come do lessons?
Well, I'm like you. I realize that the proper fitted golf club is going to help the golfer. So if they have a club that's way out of bounds, so to speak, in terms of fit for them, I would certainly encourage them to get a better fit golf club, to take up the game and enjoy it. I mean, certainly if they're in the realm of reasonable fit, it would just be a topic of conversation and say, hey, the club's a little heavy for you. Or the club's flex is a little soft for you. These are going to be the things that this club tends to do because it's a little soft. You're going to have a lot less control of your direction of shots. When this club's flexing like it is, it's going to be tougher for you. You're probably not going to develop full club head speed. You'll instinctively slow down trying to keep this club from whipping all over the place and try to make contact. So it's going to affect the way a golfer swings if there's some fitting issues. And certainly a lot of times budget is a consideration. So the student just, hey man, I scraped up $200. This is all I could do, and so that's what you're working with. But Yeah, it's a definite it depends situation, but it's a topic that has to be discussed as a coach. I want them to know, hey, this club doesn't suit you perfectly. Maybe we can work with it for now, but I want you to be aware of it so that it doesn't frustrate you when you struggle hitting a golf shot. And it's partly, responsible for this club not performing the way it should for you.
Sure.
Yeah. So that's
And I
that's
think,
kind of the way I look.
going into some of that, one of the things that I like to make sure that people understand when it comes to the fitting side of it, for what we're going to do, is that it's not just looking at the length and the lie angle of the golf club.
Right.
When you come into Club Champion, we're going to see what you're doing with what you have. And there are, from an equipment standpoint, shafts are going to range anywhere from 40 grams all the way to 130 grams, or 132 grams is the heaviest shaft that I have, right?
Mm-hmm.
So to think that the golf club that you have in your hand is going to be absolutely perfect for you is a little naive. And very rarely, I would say to almost never, have I had someone walk in the door and me go, dude, this thing is absolutely perfect for you. We just need to nip off a half inch and change that lie angle 1 degree. It
Right.
virtually never happens,
Right.
right?
That's not where
So,
big changes
um,
happen. Yeah.
no, absolutely not. And big changes. The higher the handicap, this is the one thing I love. I love getting higher handicap players in.
Mm-hmm.
I had a higher handicap player that came in on Friday, and he goes, I really just feel like I need a new driver. He hit his driver. I think the launch was 10 degrees, and he hit up on it 4 degrees, Alan. He had like 1,600 spin,
Wow.
and he flew that golf ball 165 yards. We got him into a slightly lighter golf shaft in a 10.5 degree head, and he was swinging at 10 miles an hour faster by the end of it and was flying at 230 at the end of it. And I was like, this is the greatest, jump in distance that I've ever had. I
Yeah.
took pictures of it. I was so happy. And then you get tour players, and they pick up 7 yards, and they're like, man, this is awesome. So
Oh yeah.
it's sometimes you get a better player and the gains are marginal. And to me, that's not as quite as fun as when I get a higher handicap player and we see these, 80-yard distance gains.
Yeah. Well, I know for me, years ago, I used to have a little retail store in Charlotte, and I got into the club building aspects of things a little bit at that time, and it was fascinating to me to see how a stock graphite shaft from a major manufacturer could have so many um, slight differences from one club to the next, even if it was marked as the same shaft and flex. For instance, I had
Mm-hmm.
a golfer come in and bought a driver. I won't mention the name of the company because it's probably across the board at this time in the 90s with graphite shafts that were stock in drivers. But he really enjoyed this driver. He hit it so well. He said, man, I love this thing. I'm hitting this thing so good. I think I want to buy the 3-wood and the 5-wood to match this driver. So, logic would say you'd go over and you'd find the exact same flex that his driver was, and you'd purchase a 3-wood and the 5-wood, and you're good to go. Well, that's what he did. He came back weeks later. He said, "Man, I'm just not hitting this 3-wood and 5-wood. I've got a lot of hook on the ball with these fairway woods, but I'm still hitting my driver good. Can you come and take a look at me?" So back in the day before launch monitors were the norm, I had nothing but cameras and my eye to watch what he was doing, and kind of things looked pretty good for me with his setup and with his path and face. What I could tell at that time, I could not put a finger on why he was hooking the ball more
Yeah.
with 3-wood and 5-wood. So I go back to my golf shop where the only technology I had really back then was a swing weight scale and a frequency analyzation tool that would measure the frequency of a shaft. So I said, well, let's measure what I can measure. So I measured frequency. Well, the driver was I believe it was a firm flex, and it was about 256 CPMs. The 3-wood was about 249, and the 5-wood was about 251 or two. It was like, wait a minute, I'm not a rocket scientist, but that doesn't seem right. Seems like the
Mm-hmm.
shorter shaft would have a higher frequency than the longer shaft if they were the same flex property.
It
So I
should.
called the manufacturer, and sure enough, they said, well, here's the deal. We don't use frequency measurements on our shafts when we're assembling golf clubs. We just kind of take them from a barrel and assemble the club and ship them out, and that's how they go. And if you use frequency, they're going to measure all over the place. I just thought that was an interesting statement from a manufacturer. And this was one of the top manufacturers of the time, that said that to me. So what we ended up doing, knowing what I knew, I said, well, let's experiment. Let's try to get the frequency higher on the 3-wood than the driver. And let's tip trim this thing until we get to a point where there's a space between 256 for the driver. We're trying to get to about 260, maybe 261 or 2 for the 3-wood, and then 265, 6, or 7 for the 5-wood, and see what we got. So that's what we did. We tip trimmed both the fairway woods, but extended them back to that length. And he came back, he said, whatever you did, fixed it. He said, I hit them straighter. I just thought that was an interesting story. And for me, again, that's just another variable that you have to be aware of when you just buy a club off the rack that you might be, not getting what you think you're getting.
Well, I had the ability to go visit one of the shaft manufacturers out in California last year. And you know me, Alan, I've never been one to kind of shy away from asking somebody the question that makes them a little uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I kind of talked about that a little bit and was asking them about the stock shafts and things. And, obviously from them, they're like, well, no, it's still really great stuff. It's what we send out there. But at the end of the day, it's all about margin. It's about profit. These are publicly traded companies, for the most part, when you're talking TaylorMades and Callaways, and they've got a responsibility to their shareholders to show a profit.
Sure.
And so, when they're buying the shafts and when they're buying the grips, the goal is to buy them as inexpensively as they possibly can.
Mm-hmm.
And when you see the best example right now is the TaylorMade Sim, the Ventus shaft that's in it. The Ventus shaft with Fujikura has been one of the best played shafts, or the most played shafts on tour last year. We got that one in. I've currently got one in my driver. We got that in maybe a year and a half ago at this point, and that's been our number one selling shaft. And for me to say that it's a number one is pretty hard because we try to do everything as brand agnostic as we can. It has a technology called VelaCore in the tip section. It's a different fiber that they're able to wind into and roll into the tip section of that graphite shaft that keeps it very, very stable. And so what I've seen is very great or fantastic distance, as well as being very, very accurate shaft. The Ventus that goes into the stock driver from TaylorMade does not have VelaCore. It's painted very similarly, and a lot of people think that it's the real thing. The real thing is a $400 shaft.
Right.
It's expensive, but it performs very well. The shaft that goes into the TaylorMade product, if it was a $400 shaft, that driver would not sell for $500. There's just no way it could, right? So they want to make it seem like they're adding value with that shaft sometimes, but really they're buying that shaft for $2-3, and it's kind of a watered down version painted similarly. And so that you're going to get a lot of inconsistencies with stock shafts for sure.
Yeah, even back then, I was getting a box of maybe 50 shafts. If I got a box of 50 iron shafts, maybe a very popular iron shaft in steel, the weight range of those shafts had a variance. You put them on a scale and you go, wow, they all just don't weigh exactly the same, do they? They had different frequencies, tested in their raw form with a 200-gram weight on the end of them, and they all had slightly different weights. So talk to me about shaft matching. I mean, is there and shaft variation there obviously is going to play a role in what ends up happening when you've got a set of irons made from all these shafts.
Yeah, I mean, I think the nice thing, and I'm going to give the shaft manufacturers some credit here, is the tolerances have gotten a lot better, especially when you're talking about aftermarket shafts. We do not frequency shafts with Club Champion. We could, but we and we've got the ability to, we've got the frequency machines, but it's really not been something that's been super important, because I feel like sometimes people get stuck on a certain number, and when you frequency, there's so many different variables.
Right.
What is the clamp pressure? Are you frequencing just the butt? Are you frequencing the tip, the mid? Where are we measuring, right? And
Yeah, where's
the
the
downside
COG
with,
in the head that was on that shaft when you were
oh yeah,
frequently analyzing it? I mean,
yeah, and the biggest problem that the golf industry has, there's no standards for most of anything, right? You
right,
look at the standard length of golf clubs, and they're all over the place, dependent upon the manufacturer.
right.
Um, but for me, when it comes to matching, and this is, to your point, you said earlier, logic would dictate that we would just do the same shaft in those 3-wood, 5-wood. What I have found is probably 98% of the time is the same shaft in the fairway woods does not work as the driver, right? Typically, the driver, I'm looking for, lower spinning. I'm looking for stability. I want to go at this thing. And the 3-wood is a slightly different swing, right? If we're going to get, a little bit deeper with the TrackMan numbers, I deal with the driver. I want to hit up on it just a little bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I can hit up on it, I can launch it higher with lower spin. I'm going to get some really awesome carry. I'm going to get a ton of roll. With a fairway wood, if I hit up on it, that margin of error is really small.
Mm-hmm.
So,
You're gonna top
ideally
it a
I'd want to
lot.
hit down on it a little.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You want to hit down on that 3-wood just a little bit. So typically I'm going to want a slightly stiffer tip section in my driver to keep that stability and to keep that spin rate down. And then in my 3-wood, I want something that's just a little bit softer in that tip section. Effectively a slightly lower kick point, to be able to get that ball up in the air a little bit and easier off the turf. So,
Mm-hmm.
it's one of those things where I know when I see somebody walk in our door, if they've got the exact same shaft in driver, 3-wood, 5-wood, there's some issue in that top end of the bag that we're going to have to address. And, I just don't necessarily, for me, I unless you're talking irons, I don't think we're needing to be in the exact same shafts. Irons, we do weight sort our iron shafts, so we make sure that every shaft is weighing out to the same way. We want to swing weight all of those. We weight sort the heads. I've had players that have called us up and gone, "Hey, I got my custom built set. I'm playing really awesome with it, but somebody asked me, they took a look at my pings, for instance, and they said I had different serial numbers on different heads." Yeah, because we get a bunch of different heads from Ping, and we're going to weight sort them, and we're going to make sure that they all match up to one another so that you're playing the most consistent set that you can. Just because a set of heads that came from Ping all have the same serial number doesn't necessarily mean that they match up to one another.
Yeah.
And so we're going to be able to manipulate that and really kind of take it deeper.
Yeah, you're basically doing what a tour player is having access to in terms of their club fitting for the recreational golfer. The golfer is trying to become a better player, and you're just doing those things that are available to them to help them with their equipment fitting. And I mean, it's not normally
100%.
available unless you come see you guys for that level of fitting. So
100%. I actually had a tour player that came in, and I looked at him and I said, hey, it's a pleasure working with you. I don't understand why you're here.
yeah,
And I said, you've got access to do it out on tour. And he goes, well, I'm on staff with so and so company. I have to hide from my rep to go see to go see company B rep. And then I've got to hide from both of them to go see company C. He's like, I can just come see you for a few hours and just get it all done with. And I
yeah.
don't have to worry about hiding from anybody. I'm like, all right, cool. Let's do it.
Well, I mean, players at that level, they're looking for the best equipment. I mean, they're aware that there's some advantages that they can gain by having technology. I know my son actually came to see you not too long ago, and I hate to admit it, his bag is full of antiquated equipment from brand brand A, and when you fit him to a driver and he hit a driver that you fitted him, I think 377 yards on TrackMan. I
I've
think
shown
there's
that
some
picture
truth.
to a bunch of people.
That's, I mean, he's been telling me for a while, Dad, if I just had this driver and this shaft, I would be hitting it a lot farther. So, thanks to you for for proving his point to me. I knew it was true, but but yeah, I'm no longer sponsored by Brand A myself, so that's the way it goes. But yeah, there's a lot of technology out there, and even the pros are aware of it. I used to be around the Champions Tour a little bit when I was over at Rock Barn teaching, and those guys were back and forth to the equipment trailer all week, changing shafts, grips, heads, whatever they thought was going to give them that next accuracy or a couple more yards or whatever it was they were looking for. So it's there. You just have to be willing to, as I say, go down the rabbit hole and find it. I want to speak to a moment about my sponsor. My sponsor is really, really, really great guy. I want you to all go see Jeff Zarkowski at Clinic Drug over in Morganton. You're from Morganton, Rob. You know how good Morganton is. This guy's
Oh yeah.
amazing, and he really has a great drugstore over there. So let me just give you a personal recommendation. Go see Jeff because your health matters at Clinic Drug. Thanks again to my sponsor. Tell us about growing up, Rob. What was the first day you got into the game of golf? And going back a little bit, I know, but were you an athlete and played a lot of sports, or just golf? Tell us about growing up and how you found the game.
It's funny. I played a lot of baseball growing up, and got on the middle school team, and it was very talented. A lot of really good players. I know a lot of the guys from that middle school team actually went and played collegiately baseball, but I rode the bench. I was good enough to be on the team, but not good enough to play all the time. And you know, ended up going after that year. I remember you've played at Silver Creek, I'm sure.
I
I
haven't.
remember.
I know it
Have
because
you
I see
not really?
videos of my students playing there, but I've not been up there yet.
Super hilly. And I remember this was in middle school. Me and my buddy, it was the last day of school, and we hopped in the car, and he was like, his dad wanted to go hit golf balls at Silver Creek, and he convinced us to go with him. And so we went to hit golf balls, and just off the back of the ninth green to the left side of the range is a pond. And me and him started, we bet each other $1 that we could get it into the pond. Looking back at it now, it's only like 140 yards away, but we were wailing at drivers to get the golf balls to go into that pond. And I think I won the dollar. And then from that point, I was like, you know what? I'm going to play the sport that I can get the praise if I do well, and I, take the heat if I don't. And
Yeah.
so, golf for me was one of those things where you get out of it what you put into it. And so I've kind of stayed into it since then.
Yeah, I was kind of the same way. I love baseball. I was playing baseball, and it dawned on me because I had taken up golf at 11. I was playing baseball at 11, 12, and 13 along with that. And it dawned on me one day that in golf, you don't have to run laps around this big old baseball field. You can walk. And I thought, I kind of like walking better than running these laps. And the other fact, as you mentioned, baseball was I could have a great game, hit 2 home runs, throw 2 guys out at second trying to steal, and we lose 12-7. And in golf, it was kind of up to you. If you played well and you practiced and prepared, you could really do well. And if not, it was all on you. So it was kind of similar for me as well. So
Yeah.
in trying to move this club fitting topic into something else, talk about how the bag is kind of considered, and how do you advise a player? Okay, well, I get 14 clubs. The rule says I can have 14. What 14 do I need? Once I get them all
Mm-hmm.
fitted to me, what's the makeup of my set, and how do you approach that?
So that is a question that nobody's asked me, and I really love that question. Honestly, one of my big numbers that I look at is land angle on TrackMan. So land angle is the angle that ball comes into the turf, right? To me, that's a measure of control. And so a lot of what I'm doing at the top end of the bag is going to be looking at um, a little bit of distance gapping, but also that measurement of control, right? So
Yep.
how is that golf ball coming down? So when we fit a 6-iron, that's what we use to fit our irons with. 45 for me is my magic number. If you can hit a 6-iron and it's landing at 45 degrees, then I am comfortable with you ordering a 5-iron. if it's a little bit higher than 45 on that 6 iron, I'm probably comfortable with you hitting a 4 iron. But
Mm-hmm.
let's say that 6 iron never, or barely gets above 40-degree land angle, then that 4 iron's probably going to land the exact same distance as the 5 and just roll out a little bit further. So to
Yep.
me, it's a waste of money. So I'm always looking like driver 32 to 38 is my ideal land angle number, and that's just telling me that I've hit the right launch and spin. With a fairway wood, I want it to be high 30s, low 40s. With hybrids, pretty much the same kind of thing, or at least the 3 hybrid that we measure with. But the 6 iron, if that 45 number, again, it's my kind of golden ticket a little bit. It'll tell me where we need to be from a bag makeup wise. So I had a gentleman in last week. He was asking the same question. He walked in with a driver, a 3 wood, a 3 hybrid, and then 4 iron down. He walked out with driver, 3 wood, 5 wood, 4 hybrid, 5 hybrid, and 6 iron down. Because there was no way those other. He was like, "Yeah, my 4 iron just helps me get under trees," and I feel like a lot of times when you go to some of the big box stores, they'll say, "Hey, what do you want?" And that's not a question that I necessarily want to leave to my players unless they're a very low handicap player and they know what they want.
Yeah.
And I agree with it. If I don't, I'll tell them I don't really agree with what you're thinking. But,
Sure.
I like to look at some of those numbers and explain what my rationale is as we go through it.
Well, no, I'm glad you said that, because that concurs with my thought process as well. When I had a number of college players and have them on TrackMan, a lot of girls, they're really good players. They hit the ball so good, but they have trouble with their lower club head speeds with their launch angles and their descent angles. And so when they get down in that 5 iron, 4 iron, and, definitely not going to be able to hit a 3 iron typically and land it at an appropriate angle, I say you're not going to be able to stop that 4 iron on a green. Let's say you have a front pin and your 4 iron yardage, and that green's hard as a brick. How's this going to go for you? It's going to land. If you land the perfect shot at that pin on a firm green, it's going to roll off the back of the green, descending at that shallow of an angle, So it's a useless
Absolutely.
golf club for them at that point. It's useless.
Yep. And what I typically will explain is like, look, this club goes 190, and they're like, yeah, that's what I need. And I go, but if there's a pond in front of the green and you have to carry it 170, you're toast. It's not going to happen.
Right.
And so
Can't
that's why
roll
we
it
got
up
to
in
talk
that
about
situation.
hybrids. Yeah. No, absolutely not. So, I think you hit on something a little bit that I like to talk about as well, especially with some of the better juniors, better players. The reason why what we do and the reason why our company is so successful is because not everybody's the same, right? I have fit a lot of different people, and I had one in particular that came back and said, I need to play this because this is what they're playing on the LPGA tour. It's like, yeah, but they're also swinging 95 and you're swinging 83. So
Right.
we're not there yet. Right.
Right.
So that's the unfortunate part about this whole thing is, just because player X is playing this doesn't mean that works for you. And that's what we try to make sure that we're just looking at the numbers.
Yeah, I mean, you're validating it, like you said, with your measurement technology, and that's what really matters. I mean, when this technology wasn't available, you'd go into the golf shop and you'd buy a new driver because you set it down in front of you. You go, well, that looks really good, and I know so and so plays with me in my Saturday group, and man, they are pounding that thing. I have to have that. They're buying a
Yep.
driver that their buddy hits good on that alone. And the fact that it's in the golf shop on sale, or that they set it down and it looks good after they look at it. So, it just makes no sense. But let's talk a little bit about. I know you fitted me for a putter a number of years back, and
Oh, yeah.
I can't thank you enough. That putter is still my main putter. It's in my bag, and I still putt with it and love it, and show it to folks in putting lessons and explain. I don't know if you remember this, but I had a number of purple P's engraved on the bottom of it. It's kind of one of my putting
Oh, yeah. They
philosophies.
questioned me about how many P's that was supposed to be.
Yeah. Well, it can be
Like,
as
are you
many as
sure?
you
Was that a
want it to be.
typo?
I think it was 6. Now, to be honest with you, I can't remember. But yeah, it's just I felt like there were a number of words that started with P that would be a good topic of conversation when I was talking about what it takes to to be perfect at putting. So that's where the P's came from, and my favorite color purple was on there as well. So anyway, your philosophy, has it changed much about fitting putters from where you came, and how's it evolved? And tell me how that might go as you fit someone for a new putter.
Yeah, I mean, it's evolved a little bit. I am very grateful from where I was. Learned a lot there, but I think when we use Sam Putt Lab to putt with, and so TrackMan is a Doppler radar device. It just sees everything that's going on. Sam Putt Lab is sonar based, so there's a little device that clips onto your putter, and basically we're going to be able to look at your stroke. And for me, I want to find what putter best complements your stroke. I still believe that aim is very important. Can you aim that putter? Does it look good to your eye, and does it match what your perception is? I believe that weight is vital. Having the correct weighting to the putter is going to help you make a consistent stroke, and it's going to help you be able to control that green speed. Um, with that said, if you break it down, Ping has its approach to fitting a putter, right? It's based on the arc of your stroke. Do you have a strong arc? Do you have a weak arc? Well, for me, the problem with that a little bit is if the putter length is too long for you, your arc is naturally going to be stronger, right? Because it's not fitted the proper way. There's talking about the rotation of the face, talking about toe hang and things like that. I think that's pretty important. So for me, I've kind of taken it a little bit of a step further. Not only how well do you aim it, but also is it the proper toe hang for a player? Does it also want to kind of be able to square up a little bit for them? There's so many good. Well, I'll say this: everybody makes good equipment. I don't think anybody gets into the business to make bad equipment.
Right.
It's just making sure that the equipment works for what you're looking for it to do.
Sure.
And so, for me, yeah, I've kind of evolved a little bit. I don't want to focus just on one thing. I want to make sure that when we are looking at different products out there, that we're able to hit on a variety of different things. Because if I can answer more than just one question, I've got a much higher opportunity for success in making sure that you keep that putter in your bag.
Yeah. Yeah, I find it interesting that golfers, again, when they buy a putter, it's based on, they set it down, they say, I think I can make a lot with that. It looks good, and to them at that moment, and then they're quick to change when they're not putting well. There's not a whole lot of diagnostics that goes into why they're not putting well. It's just, let's immediately change putters, or let's get a new grip. Let's get one of those really big, flat, handed grips, and we'll putt better. So it's not a lot of logic seemingly going into how they're getting suited to their equipment. And I'm a big believer that's a big mistake for golfers, to just switch around all the time. Just understand what they need to help them. And it might be that they have a putter that's too heavy or too light or too long. It could be something simple, but understand why that their putter doesn't suit them, and why it's affecting their inability to control line or speed, or get the ball rolling. And maybe it's loft. They're putting too much backspin on their putts, and it's just difficult for them to get the ball to stay on line and roll with the proper energy. So all those things. But you have Sam Putt Lab, and so you're getting a lot of data about their stroke, and understanding that it's going to help the golfer, no question.
Oh yeah. And you know what kind of dumbfounds me a little bit, Alan, is what you were just talking about. To this day, still happens on tour. I mean, if you go out to almost any tour event on Monday or Tuesday, there are just staff bags around every putting green with putters just leaning up on them.
I know.
And unless you're one of the top players in the world, you don't get fitted for your putter. You just go roll something and you're like, oh yeah, this one looks really, really good. And maybe they putt great that week, but it's because they're putting on, Poana greens. And then the next week they take that putter that they just won the tournament with and go putt on bent greens, and they putt horribly. Right. And so it's just this seesaw up and down of, maybe what works and what doesn't. I mean, at the end of the day, you talk about some of the new Scotties or Bettinardi putters or different brands that we have. Yeah, they're expensive putters, but if you break it down in price per putt, it's the cheapest golf club in your bag,
Right.
and so I think it's one of the most important you gotta take a look at.
Yeah, I think in my aim point education, we looked at what a golfer could make, a top 25 money winner on the PGA Tour, if they had a season where they were one stroke better per tournament for the entire season, it would be 1.7 million more dollars earned that season. Just one stroke better per tournament. So you're talking about a quarter of a stroke around, and that's probably going to happen if they putt well or not. It's going to be the difference. So a lot of money if you can just make
Absolutely,
a few more putts.
absolutely.
But yeah, I've been at some events. Used to be web.com and now it's the Corn Ferry. But I've been at some events with players, and I can't tell you how many times they'll walk by the bag where all the putters are leaned up on the putting green and just stop and take a look and cry, say, leave that thing alone, man. You've got one in your bag we need to work on. Don't be a guy that looks like he's going down the aisles of a trade show looking for free candy in the bowls on the table and just grab everything out there that's free. It's like, no, leave it alone.
Yeah, yeah, no,
So
absolutely.
hard to do. I like to test players just to see where they are with their skills. What is it you're struggling with? Is it line? Is it speed? Is it your green reading skills? What is the issue? And then we'll talk if the putter's going to help you there. And certainly it can. And in a lot of cases it will when it's properly fitted to you. But yeah, that's crazy, man. That's a
And I
lot of
think
great
over the
information.
years,
I'm sorry.
yeah, I think over the years I've seen players that will start to adapt because they have the wrong putter.
Sure.
Right? We're all athletes, so we want to try to figure out how do we fix it. So let's say you constantly pull everything to the left because your putter doesn't have enough toe hang, or you aim it improperly, or whatever the problem may be.
Oh yeah.
I've seen people that literally can't see anything anymore, and don't know how to read a green, and they'll underread everything or overread everything in order to compensate.
Right.
But and I know you've seen that with Aimpoint, but it's an interesting one. I think you get fitted to the right product, putter, whatever it may be. I think everything starts to get a little better. It's easier to be able to do the instruction and go from there.
And I'm thinking we haven't really talked much about wedges, but I know that's another topic. We could probably have an entire show just on wedges and their loft and bounce. But let's touch on it a little bit because it's an important element in the bag. I mean, I remember years back, I was kind of an old school guy, and the way I thought, I would carry all the way through to the pitching wedge in a normal iron set. And then my next wedge was a sand wedge, and then when the lob wedge came out, I added one. But the gap wedge was one of those interesting clubs that I just steered around for a long time, and then eventually said, "What are you doing? Put a gap wedge in
Mm-hmm.
your bag and gap your wedges. They're the most important clubs in the bag for scoring." So I know that was a big change for me, but it just opened up the door of consistent wedge play for me. And I know players now, they have their own philosophies about it, but wedge fitting is really really significant for a golfer to score. It's probably second after putting and driving. You got to have proper gapping, but you also need to understand those lofts and how they're going to gap the clubs and those bounces and how that's going to work into the ground when you're hitting different pitch shots and bunker shots around the green. So let's just touch on that a little bit for the listener. What do they need to pay attention to when selecting lofts and bounce combinations?
So, I mean, for me, whenever I'm fitting a wedge, um, this is probably the one golf club where I give the client a little bit more freedom in telling me what they want, versus some of the other clubs, mainly in look and feel. I feel like if you don't like the way a wedge looks, then it's never going to work for you. I grew up playing Vokey wedges, Cleveland wedges at that time when Roger Cleveland was designing them. To me, they looked very boxy, and I don't like that look. And to this day, the Callaway wedges now, since he's designing those, they just don't match my eye.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure that a player likes the way that a wedge looks. But bounce is your resistance to digging, and you know I hear sometimes, well, okay, well, I need more bounce if I'm playing soft conditions, less bounce if I'm playing, harder conditions. Yeah, I mean, it depends. You're not changing your swing. You're not changing your angle of attack. You're not changing your shaft lean. So I think you need the same kind of bounce. Width on the bottom of the golf club, though, I don't know if I can over bounce somebody as far as that angle is concerned, but I can over width somebody in a hurry.
Mm-hmm.
So to explain it to people, the Vokey K grind. It is an awesome wedge to be able to get out of a bunker. It's an awesome wedge to hit a straight face shot from a fairway. But if you try to roll it open, since it has that extra width and you're trying to hit a flop shot, that trailing edge is going to lead or going to pop that leading edge up off the ground. And you're not going to be able to hit a flop shot very well. And
Certainly
so
not off a tighter lie.
to Oh, Lord, no. And so for me, it's one of those things where a lot of our time talking about wedges is interviewing the player about what kind of shots they prefer to play.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up playing at Mimosa Hills. So honestly, Alan, I do not know how to hit a bump and run shot. Do not have that touch. I hit a flop shot pretty much everywhere. And so for me, my 60-degree wedge is what I play around the greens. I've got a fairly high bounce, but I have a lot of relief off of the back to be able to roll it open and play whatever kind of shot I want to.
Mm-hmm.
So we really want to get into what does the player prefer to do, and then we're going to figure out what kind of bounce angle they need in order to be able to have the best turf interaction possible.
Yeah. Well, that's critical information. And most of the time when I start this conversation with my golfers, the term bounce is just so foreign to them. They really just don't have an awareness of what that's referring to, and it's a difficult concept for the recreational golfer to understand. But it's a very important aspect of proper fitting, for players. So they need to come see Rob Gallagher over at Club Champion Golf and get all the answers. Rob, you've been great today, and it's been awesome to have you on, man. I miss you. I wish I could see you more often. You're down there in the busy world of Charlotte now. You're not up in the foothills of North Carolina where I am. But let's do some rapid questions real quick as we wrap up here today. Just some questions that I asked
Sure.
my golf guests. And so how many hole-in-ones you had as a golfer?
Just one.
One. Wow.
I'm glad I didn't go back to the cart and get the 9-iron instead of the 8.
What's your favorite golf course?
Oh, man. I got to play Torrey last year. Torrey North, actually. That one was a lot of fun. The South course is where they do a lot of the stuff, or where they play 3 out of the 4 rounds, but I actually enjoyed the North course a little better.
Oh, so what's your favorite Masters sandwich?
Ooh. The pimento cheese it's just a classic.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. Have you ever broken a golf club in a fit of anger?
I mean, that's the multiple. I don't remember how many.
That's what got you into club fitting. You learn how to change your own shaft.
Yeah. I tell you what, the second one that I did and I found out how much it cost, it stopped real quick.
Yeah, I remember that one myself. The best perk in your current job?
There's some good discounts every once in a while. The downside is that I never get to play anymore, so I don't really get to use them that often.
Yeah, man, I resemble that remark for sure. Well, man, that's been fantastic. Rob, I want to encourage all my listeners to come see you at Club Champion Golf. I know they'll have to call and get an appointment down there. Give us some information on how to get in touch with you and where they can find information just on Club Champion Golf.
Yeah, best thing, clubchampiongolf.com. Go online. You can book the appointments directly from the website. Get any info that you need. The nice part is, again, we're growing. So we're down here in Charlotte, but we just opened our Winston-Salem location right at the Haynes Mall as well. So we've got places all over the country. And if you're listening from all over the place, hey, check it out. There's probably one near you as well.
Very good. Rob, thank you again so much for being with us. You've been listening to Rob Gallagher talk about getting the proper fit in your golf bag. Listen, I encourage you to do that and do it with Club Champion Golf if you can find one in your area. If not, look them up online at clubchampiongolf.com. Thanks again, Rob. We'll see everyone next time on The Forecast.